Pat, I wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit about, I think, one of the unsung heroes of the organ that you played with, Don Patterson. I've always felt that he was an unsung hero of the instrument.
I don't know, you know, I can't say that Don, I don't know how that feels to consider Don an unsung hero because I sang with Don. And to me, he was one of the most proficient individuals on that particular machine. He was just prolific. Again, I've always found it more interesting to study the person than what they teach. When I went to a teacher, I studied the person, not the curriculum. The curriculum seemed to be second nature. It seemed to be similar to all the others, like the 12 months, the 12 tones, the whole thing.
4 seasons.
The 4 seasons, yeah, minor thirds. So Don Patterson, I remember Don for other reasons. I remember Billy James and Don with other implications than their musicianship. The musicianship was so easy for them that what's to talk about? You know, it's just automatic. It's automatic and it's profound. When it emerges, it's second nature to them. So, as far as not receiving the recognition that he deserved, I don't know, because I gave him the highest recognition that I've given anyone. And so I can't participate in the feeling about that.
Sure.
Personally, it didn't work that way for me. I experienced them at the highest level as a learning experience and a love experience in my life that can never be forgotten and that can always be respected, you know.
You, before we take a break, I also wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit about another one of your dear friends and teachers, Willis Gator Tail Jackson.
Yeah. Willis Jackson caused me to learn the importance of leadership. I used to be impressed of leadership on his behalf in terms of the established, the nature of that particular way of playing, that particular way of working, the establishment, the engagements, the arrangements, the time that it took for him to be a serious employer. I was one of his employees. He was one of the first individuals that brought my attention to the similarity of any other employer, as opposed to just another musician. He really established that with me. His significance as an individual, how he stood aside and lived that position and with respect and success. And his seriousness and dedication to his own identity and how he upheld and demanded of those that he paid to do what they were paid for. That to me was impressive because it transcended the game that most musicians fall prey to with their soloistic nature. In other words, did you hear that? Mm-hmm. You know, check this out. Right. It had nothing to do with that. It had nothing to do with that. Do you listen to, don't you listen to so-and-so? No, it had nothing to do with that. Right. It had everything to do with an elder, an adult, who, like any other adult, is part and parcel of the United States of America in the midst of survival, in the midst of our culture, in the midst of the demands that it has socially, economically, longevity, the longevity of sustainment, and to keep your identity, your fabric, your art, whatever it is that you have packaged and whatever it is that you're selling, promote it with respect to yourself and with others who participate with you. That's what I learned more from Willis than anything else.
Yeah, what a great musician. I've never had the opportunity to meet him, but I love listening to him on recordings. Now, we are going to take a quick break, but I do have to ask you one more question.
Please,
about
feel
one
free.
other person who I know is very important to you, and that's your lovely wife, Aya.
Wow.
The first time I had an opportunity to meet you in person, I've always noticed that, you know, you two are very wonderfully giddy together, you know,
We are,
like
yeah.
teenagers.
We are. We always are.
How did you guys meet?
I was in the process of a 10-city tour through Japan, and the final engagement on that particular tour in '95, the end of '95, was Tokyo, and that's where we met. Actually, at the end of the performance, I was requested to come to the forefront of the concert hall, and there was a long table there, and I would be there and I would sign some autographs, and I enjoyed doing that. So there was a long line of folks that enjoyed the performance, and one by one, couples and singles came one after another, and I spent a moment with them and signed an autograph, or sometimes took a guitar and signed my autograph on someone's guitar. And at the very end of the line was a couple, and the gentleman had a guitar, and I signed the guitar, and with him was a beautiful lady, and I was taken by her presence and the twinkle in her eyes. And I said to the band after we left the side of the building to avoid the front with people waiting outside, I said, I really, I guess I won't see her again, but I was really affected by this lady. The following day I had a clinic to do at the largest music store in Tokyo, in a specific area of Tokyo. And I went in, and there she was. She came to the clinic, and at which time I gave her my number. And I asked her for hers, and she gave me hers, and I gave her mine. And I came back to the United States, and I called her, and she couldn't even speak English at that time. But we had a rapport that was communicative and magic through the eyes, and just through presence, the hado, the aura of each other. And we communicated in that way. And we began to try to communicate in other ways. So I would call her in Tokyo, and she would have 5 dictionaries on the floor next to the telephone. And we would talk. And I remember phone bills, $1,700 a month. You know. Until finally it was out of hand, and I invited her to come to the States. You know, but it was my birthday. I remember it was my birthday, and I gave myself a birthday present. The first time I ever gave myself a vacation, and my birthday present to myself was to go to Japan, to Tokyo, and meet her and her parents. So I did that. I went to Tokyo, and I met her parents, her folks. I went to their house, and we met, and 6 months later she flew to the States, and that's 14 years ago. And we married. And we've been close ever
there
since.
she is right there. Once you give her a round of applause. You're on camera. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a 10-minute break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to let you ask the great Pat Martino some questions.